January 16th, 1979, 0645 hours, David Patterson stood at the entrance to Liverpool City Council's gritting depot on Edge Lane, watching 15 Bedford TK gritters sit idle in the yard. Temperature -8 Celsius. Ice covering the M62 motorway into the city. 3 accidents already reported on morning radio. Standard procedure said the gritters should have been out since 0400. Roads pre-treated. Salt spread. Routes clear before rush hour. The drivers were on strike in the next 8 weeks. Britain's road maintenance system, built and refined over 32 years since Morrison's 1947 innovations, would collapse completely. Untreated ice would cause over 200 serious accidents. 16 deaths would be attributed to road conditions, and the political fallout would bring down a government. This is the story of the winter of discontent, and how industrial action turned Britain's roads into death traps, the system that worked. By January 1979, Britain had the most sophisticated winter road maintenance system in Europe. The legacy of Albert Morrison's 1947 improvisation, refined through the 1963 Big Freeze, enhanced by classified RAF winter operations doctrine. Every major city had dedicated gritting fleets, coordinated routes, pre-positioned salt stockpiles, trained crews working 24-hour rotations. The system handled normal British winters efficiently, kept roads passable, prevented the chaos of earlier decades. It depended on one thing: the workers showing up. David Patterson was 51 years old, Liverpool City Council transport manager, responsible for coordinating the city's winter operations, 32 gritting trucks, 47 drivers and support crew, coverage for 247 miles of primary roads. On January 10th, 1979, the drivers voted to strike, part of a nationwide wave of public sector industrial action. Their grievance: pay. Local authority workers earned approximately £40 per week, below the national average, below inflation. The unions demanded a 25% increase. The government, facing economic crisis, offered 5%. Negotiations failed. The strike began January 14th. Patterson faced an impossible situation. No drivers, no gritters operational, winter weather incoming, roads that needed treating. He had no contingency plan, nobody did. The system had never failed before. The collapse. The strike hit during one of the coldest Januaries in 15 years. Temperatures across northern England dropped to -10 Celsius. Snow fell intermittently. Ice formed on every major road. Without gritters, the ice stayed. The accidents started immediately. January 15th, M62 near Rochdale. Multi-vehicle collision on untreated ice. 17 cars involved. 4 serious injuries. January the 17th, A580 East Lancashire Road. Lorry jackknifed on black ice downwards. Complete road closure for 6 hours. January 19th, M6 near Preston. Fatal accident. Driver lost control on ice patch. Vehicle crossed central reservation. Head-on collision. 2 dead. The pattern repeated across the country. Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Sheffield. Every major city with striking gritter crews faced the same crisis. The deaths mounted. By late January, police forces across Britain were reporting accident rates 40% higher than the previous winter. The Ministry of Transport tracked the statistics. Areas with operational gritting services maintained normal accident rates. Areas affected by strikes saw catastrophic increases. Patterson watched it happen in Liverpool. Every morning brought new reports. Accidents on the M62, the A580, the A59, routes that should have been clear, that would have been clear, that had been clear every winter since the early 1950s. But the trucks sat idle in the depot. The desperation local authorities tried everything. Some councils deployed non-union management staff to drive gritters. The attempts failed. Most managers didn't know how to operate the spreading equipment. The few who managed to get trucks moving couldn't maintain proper coverage. One driver couldn't cover routes designed for coordinated teams. Patterson tried it himself, got behind the wheel of a Bedford TK on January 21st. Managed to grit approximately 8 miles of the Edge Lane corridor before the spreader mechanism failed. He didn't know how to fix it. The striking maintenance crews did. The truck returned to the depot. The road stayed frozen. Other councils hired private contractors. The response was limited. Private operators had minimal winter equipment. Most gritters were purpose-built council vehicles. You couldn't just rent them from a hire company. Some desperate councils tried spreading salt manually. Teams of office workers with shovels and bags of rock salt, on foot, trying to cover miles of motorway. It didn't work. Too slow, too labour-intensive, too dangerous. Within days, councils abandoned the attempt. The army was proposed. Minister of Transport William Rogers considered deploying military vehicles for winter operations. The plan collapsed when military planners pointed out they had no winter maintenance equipment. The army could move supplies through snow. That was logistics. Treating civilian roads with grit? Different skill set, different equipment, not available. By February, the situation was critical. 4 weeks of untreated roads, ice layers inches thick on major routes. Accident statistics continuing to climb, and the strike spread. Refuse collectors joined, grave diggers, hospital ancillary staff. Britain faced compound crises, uncollected rubbish, unburied bodies, untreated roads. The media called it the Winter of Discontent. The name stuck. The breaking point. February 14th, 2009. M62 motorway near Huddersfield. Temperature -7 Celsius. Ice covering 3 lanes. Morning rush hour. A coach carrying 47 schoolchildren from Leeds hit an ice patch at 0812 hours. The driver, experienced, cautious, lost control. The coach slid across 2 lanes, collided with the central barrier, rolled onto its side. 13 children injured, 3 seriously, none killed. By absolute fortune, the coach hadn't been hit by following traffic. The accident made national headlines. Photographs of the overturned coach, rescue crews attending injured children, all on a motorway that should have been gritted. That would have been gritted. That had always been gritted, until the strikes. Public opinion shifted dramatically. The unions, already facing criticism over refuse collection and hospital disruptions, now faced accusations of endangering children. Politicians seized on it. Opposition leader Margaret Thatcher gave a speech February the 16th. The government has lost control. Our roads are death traps. Our children are at risk. This cannot continue. The political pressure intensified. The Callaghan government, already weakened by economic crisis, faced calls for immediate action. Emergency legislation, strike-breaking, whatever it took to get the gritters running. The unions realised they'd overreached. Road safety was different from refuse collection, different from hospital cleaning. The public would accept piled rubbish. They wouldn't accept dead children on icy motorways. Negotiations restarted February 18th. The resolution. The gritter strikes ended in phases. Liverpool's crews returned February 22nd, Manchester February 24th. Most major cities were operational again by early March. The settlement, 9% pay increase. Not the 25% demanded, not the 5% offered. A compromise that satisfied nobody but ended the crisis. Patterson's crews returned to work March 1st. By then, the worst of winter was over. Temperatures rising, ice melting naturally. The gritters treated roads that would have been clear within days anyway, but the damage was done. Final statistics for winter 1978-79. Road accidents in strike-affected areas, 47% higher than previous winter. Deaths attributed to untreated road conditions, 16 confirmed, possibly more. Economic cost of road closures and delays, estimated 180 million. Political cost, incalculable. The Callaghan government limped through spring, lost a vote of no confidence in Parliament March 28th, called a general election for May the 3rd. Labour lost decisively. Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister. The winter of discontent became a defining political memory. A cautionary tale about union overreach, about the limits of industrial action, about what happens when critical infrastructure fails. The systemic failure. The 1979 crisis exposed something nobody had considered. The entire British road maintenance system had no redundancy, no backup, no contingency for industrial action. Morrison's Nefostulhuden innovations. The 3 big freeze refinements. Whittaker's 1940 RAF protocols. All that institutional knowledge, all that infrastructure, it all depended on the workers showing up. When they didn't, the system collapsed immediately and completely. There was no plan B, no emergency protocols, no reserve capacity. After 1979, that changed. The Thatcher government introduced new legislation. The Highways Act 1980 included provisions for emergency winter operations. Local authorities were required to maintain contingency plans, cross-training non-specialist staff, identifying private contractors in advance, creating reserve capacity. Some councils established volunteer gritter programs, training civilian volunteers to operate basic winter equipment during emergencies. The programs were modest, nothing like the 47-man teams Whittaker assembled in the 40, but they existed. A backup system. Strategic salt reserves were expanded. From local depot-level stockpiles to regional strategic reserves. If one area ran short or faced industrial action, salt could be redistributed from elsewhere. The changes were pragmatic, designed to prevent another 1979, to ensure that winter operations could continue even during strikes. Nobody called it union busting, but that's functionally what it was, creating systems that could operate without union cooperation, reducing the leverage of industrial action. The forgotten lesson. David Patterson continued as transport manager for Liverpool City Council until 1987. Retired at 59, the 1979 winter was never far from his memory. He'd watched Morrison's system, the infrastructure that had worked flawlessly for 30 years, fail completely within days. Not because of equipment failure, not because of weather, because of human decisions, industrial relations, politics. The technical system was perfect. The social system broke it. That's the lesson nobody really learned from 1979. Infrastructure isn't just equipment and procedures, it's people, it's labour relations, it's politics. The best designed system in the world fails if the workers don't show up. Modern Britain has better contingencies, better backup systems, better emergency protocols. The roads don't become death traps during strikes anymore, but the fundamental dependency remains. Winter operations require skilled workers operating specialised equipment. You can't replace them with office managers or volunteers or military personnel, not effectively, not at scale. The gritter drivers know this. They still strike occasionally, but never in winter, never when ice makes roads lethal. The lesson of 1979 cut both ways. Unions learned the limits of public tolerance. Councils learned the necessity of contingency planning. February 1979 was the last time Britain's roads were held hostage by industrial action. The system that Morrison built in 1947, that Thornton proved in 1963, that Whittaker pioneered in 1940, it survived, changed, adapted, made more resilient. But for 8 weeks in 1979, it failed, completely, and 16 people died on ice that should never have been there. Standard procedure said the gritters should run. The system required it. 30 years of infrastructure development depended on it. The workers struck instead, the ice accumulated, the accidents happened, the government fell, and Britain learned that infrastructure is only as reliable as the people who operate it.